Morning, church. We hope and pray all is well. I want to tell you a story today about one of the last good kings in Judah, and that was Hezekiah. he two stories today. One is about his fight against the illegal high places that people, especially in Israel, were worshiping in that God had told them not to do, as well as his conflict with the Assyrians. Uh, there are two archaeological finds, one at Arad in 1960 and another at Beersheba in 1973, in which they found remnants of altars, which were the same dimensions as the altar in the temple in Jerusalem. They had been specifically told not to construct these things on high places because they not only were they worshiping God there, they were worshiping other gods. Um, but finding these altars gives good archaeological evidence uh, that what is related in the Bible was true history. And the fact that they were burnt and destroyed shows the part of the story that we get into with Hezekiah, because Hezekiah was trying to follow God and had a campaign to get rid of these altars outside of Jerusalem. All of this archaeology supports what we find in 2 Kings 18. Another discovery was that of Sennacherib's hexagonal prism, which was excavated in Nineveh in 1830. It records the Assyrian king Sennacherib's campaign near the end of the 8th century BC, which includes his siege of Jerusalem in 701 BC. Sennacherib, in 703 BC, 2 years earlier than invading Jerusalem, captured Babylon, then under the control of King Merodach Baladan. The prism boasts of how Sennacherib and his forces entered Babylon jubilantly. It also states that he plundered 75 strong walled cities and 420 small cities. For a while, the deposed king of Babylon, Merodach Baladan, ruled in southern Babylonia and attempted to ally himself with King Hezekiah of Judah. The prophet Isaiah warned in 2 Kings 20 that any dalliance with Babylon would be a foolish move. Sennacherib's invasion of Judah in 701 BC is one of the most dramatic events in Jewish history um, and in the Bible. It has been intensively studied by both biblical scholars and secular archaeologists. Hezekiah became a target due to his dalliances with Merodach Baladan and his refusal to pay tribute to Sennacherib. Hezekiah also made overtures of alliance with Egypt as he saw the conflict brewing and Israel in need of support. These facts are alluded to in the Bible and verified in both Egyptian and Assyrian records. Sennacherib's own records tell of his first taking Phoenicia, then Philistia along the coast, before turning inland to Judah and Israel. His style of war and occupation was brutal, as he would plunder a defeated territory, burn it, and lay it to waste. Finally, Sennacherib reached the major fort city of Lachish, 40 miles southwest of Jerusalem. This was in Judah. Sennacherib's wall descriptions made no mention of the siege at Lachish, but give a vivid description of the battle. The record of this invasion is told graphically in the Bible in 2 Kings chapter 18, 2 Chronicles chapter 32, and in Isaiah 36 and 37. And these details match the Assyrian records, giving us good archaeological substantiation. After Lachish, Hezekiah knew the next target would be Jerusalem. Hezekiah also knew that their best chance was to withstand a long siege, since his forces were inadequate to go up against the Assyrians, as he would stake his hopes on waiting until help arrived from Egypt, from whom he had requested help. To endure a long siege, Jerusalem needed large stores of food and water. He moved to ensure that Jerusalem would have adequate water supply and to deny them to the Assyrians. To do this, 2 Chronicles chapter 32 tells us that Hezekiah's engineers blocked off all of the springs of streams that flowed through the land. But they did even more. According to 2 Chronicles 32 and also in 2 Kings 20, they blocked the upper outlet of the Gihon Spring and channeled the water down to the west of the city of David. To achieve this, they dug an underground channel deep in the limestone rock on which the city of Jerusalem is built. The tunnel ran for 1,748 feet from the Gihon Spring near the floor of the Kidron Valley outside the eastern wall of the city and wound it underground to the Siloam Pool, which was safely within the city walls. Now, this tunnel was discovered in 1838. We have substantiation that it exists. It's not just a Bible story. In 1880, a boy playing in the tunnel found an inscription chiseled into the rock at the halfway point left by Hezekiah's engineers in 701. This inscription and the tunnel itself verifies the biblical account of Hezekiah directing the channeling of water into Jerusalem and away from the Assyrians. Assyrian records show that Hezekiah had 4 years to prepare for Sennacherib's attack and siege. This was adequate time for the engineers to complete their work. The Bible tells us Hezekiah prayed earnestly on how to prepare for and how to meet the challenge of the Assyrians. A fascinating thing is how the Assyrian records are so silent on what happened in the siege of Jerusalem. The siege of Jerusalem is mentioned in Sennacherib's stela, but that is all. Interestingly, Jerusalem was the only city mentioned as being besieged on Sennacherib's stela, of which the capture is not mentioned. That is consistent with the biblical account that the siege did occur, but the city was not captured. Why there is nothing more in the Assyrian records is explained when you follow the end of the siege as told from the Bible. In Isaiah chapter 36, verse 37 tells us that sometime into the siege, an angel of the Lord struck down 185,000 of the Assyrians in one night. Not surprisingly, Sennacherib left this defeat and his retreat from Jerusalem out of his own version of history. Sennacherib returned to his capital of Nineveh, where his sons murdered him. And this is both related in Isaiah 37 and verified in Babylonian Chronicles. Now, what to take from these stories is this. One, the Bible is real history. It's not just Bible stories. We do not need to compromise what we find in the Bible to conform to our culture or to secular history, because the Bible is teaching real history. We need to follow God's commands. That's what Hezekiah was trying to do, and that's why he was seen through to the end. If we lean on God, he will see us through the worst of our trials. And if we have a right relationship with God, we can pray for anything within his will, even a miracle. So don't limit your prayers by what you think is possible. Hezekiah asked for a miracle and got one. We can do the same. God wants you to have a good relationship with him and for you to be able to ask for anything within his will. And we're out.